I mean, I do think it's definitely difficult to know when you need to be thinking with your business mind or with your artist mind, because there are definitely things that you can do as an artist that mean something to you and you would do for free in the first place. But there are also lots of opportunities that you get presented with that are asking you to offer your service for free, essentially. Mm-hmm. And so you need to think about the reward in exposure. Everyone always says you'll get paid in exposure. Well, you can't pay rent with exposure.
Let's go.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Social Exchange Project. I am your host, Shane Laura Waldinger, and today I am extremely excited because I have two of my, I consider them very good friends of mine, have known them through lots of different things in the community. We've crossed paths. I think we all cross paths in different ways. So I have Adam Accola. Adam is the Program Administrator for CoLab here in Eau Claire, which is a co-working space for startups and entrepreneurs. He also has a degree in vocal music, extensive experience in dance and theater. So thank you so much for being here with us today, Adam.
Yeah, thanks for having me on today, Shang.
Awesome. And then our other guest is Phil Swiler. He is a very active community member serving on entrepreneurial committees, as well as the director of memberships for the Eau Claire Chamber of Commerce. Phil has decades of leadership and management experience, as well as he owns his own very successful DJ business. DJ Phil. He is a music expert and a music lover. So thank you so much for being here as well.
Thank you. It's an honor. Thank you.
Awesome. And you were here last week hanging out with us. We did a little quick shout out for that episode.
Yeah.
I just want to do really quick intros just so that everyone kind of has a general idea, because you both do so much in the community. Today's topic is we're going to be talking about entrepreneurial, business and music and how it kind of relates with one another. You both, in my book, are experts in both areas. Being that you're a DJ and being that you're everything under the sun. Like, I joke all the time. Like, I don't know when you sleep, Adam, but if you guys, and maybe we'll start with you, Adam, just a generalized introduction of what you do.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Adam Accola. I grew up here in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I'm actually from Mondovi, just south of town here, and went to high school in Mondovi. But I've been actively involved with the Eau Claire Children's Theater here in town since I was in 5th grade. So that's probably like 15 to 18 years or so. Yeah. Yep. So I've been actively involved with them. I ended up going to school at UW Eau Claire and majoring in vocal music with a minor in Spanish and the health professions and Latin American studies. And so after college, I went on and actually managed a music recording studio for a period of time, Toy Car Studios here in town. And then I ended that management position once I started working at Pablo Center at the Confluence, where I served as the front of house assistant manager for the inaugural year. And then I moved to CoLab. So now I'm working in the entrepreneurship and business sector of Eau Claire and kind of re-gearing things a little bit, but it is also a really cool place to be and a cool place to kind of be involved in the startup scene in Eau Claire, and then have opportunities like this to discuss music and business and how musicians are also entrepreneurs. So.
Absolutely. And I do have to attest to that because I met you through CoLab. I'm also a member there. And I give you this street cred every time, but you were the one that actually referred me to Ivy and hooked us up here and had this collaboration going. And so thank you so much for that, Adam.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I feel like your life has always been around music. And again, you do a lot of things in the community, but I am really anxious to learn more about how business and music relate. So that's kind of what we're talking about today. And then Phil, hello.
Hi. Can I use Adam's intro?
Just ditto.
Because that's kind of how I wanted things to be when I grew up. No. So just to make a very, very, very long story short. So I have Hayward roots. So from the area via Madison back to Minneapolis, and then landed in Eau Claire 18 years ago. Grew up in a house that my mom just encouraged culture and art and music. So from a young age, I was attending musicals, did some show choir in high school and middle school. So I just always kind of was around music. And how I got into music was I DJ'd parties for high school friends and buddies back in the day when we actually had vinyl. Does anyone know what vinyl is? No.
Also
No, it's
dating
making
yourself.
a big comeback, right? So
No,
I love
yeah.
that. So, but professionally, just years of sales and marketing and running sales teams, and probably had every title from VP to director to, but say two things that are huge for me. I believe in just positive experiences, both in the workplace and in culture and music. And when I DJ, I've got a DJ business. I am an entrepreneur. I'm fascinated with other entrepreneurs. I just think it's a fascinating concept because I grew up in family business and watched my dad and uncle run our family businesses. So I just have a passion for that. So circle back to the chamber. I work with our membership and I work with our investors, and it's a dream job for me because I get to talk with businesses on a daily basis and really advocate for businesses. Does that make sense? So
Yeah. You've been in every which role, I feel like, when it comes to business, but then also everything that you do for music all just kind of ties in together. And I met you through the chamber because you're helping me figure out my business, which was this podcast as well, and other ventures I wanted to explore. So I met you back when I started as well. So, and you gave me and Addie phenomenal advice.
Good.
I remembered you just staying, you didn't even have to stay that late. You stayed late just to help us kind of figure out some things. And so I will never forget that.
For someone that has had a few businesses that have failed and succeeded, though, you just learn, right? You learn by doing, you learn by experience, you learn by just like putting yourself on the edge of that cliff a little bit. And I wouldn't change anything, but I really do feel that, you know, like a young entrepreneur and you're going out there, I mean, you got to consider everything. You know, I know there's a lot of, you know, everything is nirvana and the sky is blue, but you really do have to look at long term. You have to look at your budgeting process. You have to look at keeping the lights on. So
absolutely.
I want every business in the area to succeed.
Absolutely.
So.
And I feel that too.
Yeah.
So let's segue then, because one of the things that I think people don't often think about connecting is musicians or artists, or what you both do, to entrepreneurship. Phil, you and I have had this conversation when we met up, and we were talking a lot about how, so we all are on the 1 Million Cups committee as well. And I actually want you guys to touch a little bit about 1 Million Cups, what that is. But we were talking about, well, why don't we find a musician to present on their business, because they are essentially entrepreneurs. I guess just to break it down a little bit, we're counting musicians into entrepreneurship. Tell me why that is, and then also let's touch a little bit on 1 Million Cups as well. So either one of you guys.
Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, musicians are entrepreneurs in the fact that they have a product to sell, and it's not necessarily a can of soda or something that you physically receive when you are purchasing their product, but by enjoying their art and paying for that art, that is them selling their product. And so it's important to recognize an intangible product like musicians have, and also recognize it as legitimate business and a legitimate product and a legitimate exchange of currency for that product. So I think it's cool to discuss musicians as entrepreneurs, because they do need to make money. They need to pay bills. They need to keep themselves sustainable. They need to think about long-term viability. And if they're not thinking about that sort of thing, they can end up not necessarily being as successful as they maybe could be or have the potential to be if their music or art is excellent.
Right.
And 1 Million Cups, like you mentioned, it's a weekly entrepreneurial meetup founded by the Kauffman Foundation, which is a national foundation. And it is named after the 1 million cups of coffee that entrepreneurs across the United States are gathering around every Wednesday morning at 9 to discuss entrepreneurship. And here in Eau Claire, we meet every Wednesday. A lot of organizations meet once or twice a month. So it's really cool that we have it more frequently than some other communities. And we think of ourselves as the smaller city, but we've actually got a really large and thriving entrepreneurship scene.
We sure do.
So,
yeah, awesome.
Yeah, nice. So I concur with Adam on a lot of that. I think when it comes to musicians and entrepreneurship, if you look at it, you look at the foundation of a business or the structure of a business, you look at what's viable, sustainable. I think every musician goes in with their art or their craft and they want to have a viable, sustainable lifestyle and make money, right?
Or they should, right?
They should. So that's great intentions. So you see a lot of musicians that have intention, but then that the rubber meets the road, right? If they hit a wall and all of a sudden, if nobody's attending shows or buying your product, the music, how do you make a living? And so to have those basic skills of kind of thinking how a business works, an entrepreneurship works, and what's coming in, what's going out. The music business has changed so much with streaming and the streaming services. I mean, heck, for $9.99, you can get 55 million songs on,
on demand, too.
On demand. I mean, it's crazy how it's changed. So I just think that basic, viable, fundamental foundation of understanding that if you're in the music business, and we know mutual musicians in the area, if you have that basic understanding, that's where I think entrepreneurship thinking may help them, because it'll help them sustain and be viable, even if they're working day jobs, right? That's okay. But you talk to every local musician, and if they could do it full time and make a living doing it, absolutely they do it, right?
Yep.
That's what they want to do. So I think we have to do a better job in our community of recognizing local musicians. I know Adam and I talk about this, and you and I talked about this. We have to do a much better job of considering those people, the musicians, local bands, as entrepreneurs in the. I know that's a weird connect, right?
Yeah, it is.
Even saying it's weird, but
and I think a lot of it too boils down to, I don't think a lot of people understand all the hard costs that go along with being a musician.
Right.
You're paying for gas to go to gigs. You're paying for your equipment. You're paying for your cases. You're paying
studio time. If you're recording something.
Recording things.
You got to eat.
Yep. You've got all these hard costs that just come along with the job. That if you were in a traditional business,
right,
the employer would more than likely reimburse you for those expenses. So musicians have these costs that they need to recoup, and so paying them for their work is so important and something that I think we need to advocate more for, especially in the Eau Claire area, is adequate compensation for work.
Yeah. So. And I love Eau Claire because we do have a pretty lively music scene, I would say. I think that a lot of our events are featured around music and arts in general. And we talked a little bit, or you guys were talking a little bit about some of the unique challenges that musicians face. What are some things you think when you're comparing it to a traditional business, I would say, or maybe comparing an entrepreneur who's a business, or entrepreneur who's a musician, an entrepreneur who's selling, actual products like crafts maybe, or whatever that looks like. What are some of the maybe advantages or things that a musician may be doing that a business doesn't necessarily get to do? So you kind of talked about maybe they can pick and choose shows that they get to do, whereas like a traditional business may not have that. What are some advantages, would you say, or perks, I guess, or differences maybe?
Yeah, I can take that one. Well, the first thing when you were talking about that I was thinking of is when you're starting let's say you're starting a widget business, right? You're selling a product. You basically have an idea of, what your cost of the product is. You have a business plan. I think and I've talked to local musicians, some of the local musicians I know, they don't really have a plan, right? They don't. So I'm going to flip that. You're saying, so they don't have a business. Let's just call it a business plan, but maybe we call it a marketing plan or a development plan. They just kind of like, okay, I'm going to make some music. I'm going to spend all this money on studio time. I know one local musician that spent personally just tens of thousands of dollars to put their music out, and they're very talented, but there's really no plan per se. So I think when you talk about a business versus a musician and you think of entrepreneurship, maybe that's something we can do, Adam, is maybe we can do a entrepreneurship class or business plan class for musicians, or I don't know.
Well,
but
actually,
go ahead.
There's a really awesome course offered through UW Extension called Entrepreneur.
Okay.
Cool.
Interesting. So it's a course that artists can actually take to kind of get the business acumen that they need. That's more specific to this arts culture and the
that's cool.
The unique challenges that artists face when trying to sell their products. So, Entrepreneur is there's a new person running it this year, but it's a really cool course. It'll be offered this spring again.
Because you wouldn't do like a traditional business plan, like you were saying, right? Is that
not really, but maybe some sort of milestone vision, right? So, okay, in a year I want to have an album out, and the next year I want to have a little marketing team, and the next year, I always think of things as proactive and reactive. That's an easy way to make a leap of, okay, proactively I'm going to do this, and then reactively I'm going to gain this or do this. And so I think a lot of musicians have a hard time with both of those in parallel. And so anyway, yeah, that class would be great. I just don't think a lot of musicians who, look at back in the day, the music business was so different, but a lot of musicians now, it's very organic, it's very artsy, but I think you have a little bit of business acumen, if you want to make it, I say that in quotes, right? If you want to make it, you probably should have a little business acumen. And if you don't, find someone that does.
Yeah.
Find someone that you can trust that does have that acumen, and then you go create and you proact, and then let that person react and handle things. That's how the music business was. It was back in the day, they had lawyers and business managers and things like that. Now, not at all didn't work out great for some, but I think we should maybe consider going back to that. Everybody wants to do their own thing, and we talked about this before we came in here. They hold it so close, right?
Because that's their expression of who they are, as an artist. And I consider when we talk about musicians, we're thinking like maybe singer songwriter, but music producers. They're creating music for people, or like what you do. DJ. Maybe you're creating your own beats. And we talked a little bit about how it's different, like in a wedding versus like if you were to do it at a club or a bar. And then I think too for you, just having that music background. I mean, you are a choreographer, you're a dancer, and a singer. And so all these different elements of like how each artist or a musician runs their business slightly differently. It just depends on what the need is and what that looks like for them. So can I just circle back to one of the things you were talking about? So wearing the hat of an entrepreneur running a viable business that will make money and you could put it back into your business. So, cost of gas, cost of recording music time or whatever it is. How would you guys maybe speak a little bit about wearing both hats equally? And the question that I had was, provide me with your viewpoint on the balance between creative expression, being a true artist, showing who you are through your music or whatever it is, or choreography, dance, versus ensuring it to be a viable business. Is it difficult to wear both hats, would you say? And how should that kind of look like, or how does it look like for you guys?
Go ahead, Adam.
I mean, I do think it's definitely difficult to know when you need to be thinking with your business mind or with your artist mind, because there are definitely things that you can do as an artist that mean something to you and you would do for free in the first place. But there are also lots of opportunities that you get presented with that are asking you to offer your service for free, essentially. Mm-hmm. And so you need to think about the reward in exposure. Everyone always says you'll get paid in exposure. Well, you can't pay rent with exposure. And so you got to kind of weigh those things.
Not at least the last time we checked, you can't. Right?
Well, exactly.
It's very tough.
And it makes it sometimes a difficult decision whether or not to say yes or no to things, but you need to respect yourself as a business person as well.
And know your value and your worth.
Exactly, right. Because you would,
in dollars and cents.
If you owned a store, you wouldn't let someone come in and say, hey, I need to just use a bunch of this stuff and I'll put your logo on it and I'll say that it was from you, but I'm not going to be able to pay for it.
Right.
That's not how that works. And so that's not how it should work with music either.
Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts on how it could potentially work, or how does it work?
I think
for you, maybe.
For me,
tough question.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's difficult because being asked to do things like sing at funerals or weddings and things like that, it's difficult for me to put a price tag on that because I will usually get asked by people that I know. I'm not like on Craigslist just as a wedding singer. So I'll get asked by people that I know. So I have a personal rapport with them and we don't talk dollars and cents up front. And then eventually they ask the question and I'm just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's not like there's a huge scene of freelance musicians that are like singing for weddings and funerals and things that are all talking about their pricing, and they're all kind of at the same levels or like based on degree or based on experience. There's no real way to gauge that. And so
there's no baseline of this is how much it costs typically per hour for someone to come sing at a wedding or a funeral or an event or whatever. And then you also, with your background too, you do theater and acting and things. You know, can you speak a little bit more about that too, in terms of like how is that like a market that is sellable? You know, how do you navigate through that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that theater is a really interesting thing in Eau Claire because the two main theater organizations that we have, the Children's Theater and the Theater Guild, are both volunteer-based organizations. And so they employ staff people that work for them just operationally as well as production by production. But there are also a couple smaller theater companies that are actually paying people to do productions. And maybe it's not like equity compensation like you'd get in the Twin Cities, but it's at least compensation for doing something. And I think that that's an important part of a growing theater scene, especially, is the ability to pay actors for their work. I know that a lot of the work for children's theater specifically, it's about 10 hours a week of rehearsals for any major production. You're in rehearsal from 7 to 9:30 Monday through Thursday. And so it's a large commitment. And part of the reason why I love doing it and I volunteer my time is that it's giving back to this organization. And so that is a trade of services in volunteer hours, essentially. I volunteer time so that children's theater can put on a production and make money off of that production.
Sure. So
like there are those sorts of relationships that you also have to weigh in what's beneficial for the community. How are you presenting something that the community may not have otherwise? And I think it's really cool that we have two large theater organizations and several smaller theater organizations that are constantly working to bring cool art to the Chippewa Valley.
Yeah, very cool.
I just don't think that people understand how unique of a community we are in Eau Claire. And I know we say that in a bubble, but so I grew up in the Madison area, you know, fairly highly cultured, University of Wisconsin. I grew up in a little town just 10 miles outside of Madison, but felt like I grew up in Madison, right? And we're just very unique here, and I we're fortunate, I think, and I know people would contest that, but I think when it comes to the Children's Theater and the Theater Guild and all the things and having the Pablo built and I mean it's unique, it's great, and kind of back to the question that you asked earlier, and Adam answered that very well. I agree with all that. Is I struggle with it as a DJ, so I have. I call it, where do you put the ball of energy, right? So I have my job with the Eau Claire Chamber of Commerce, which I love because I love doing that. But I also love music and doing my DJ stuff. And I'm at home, you know, doing crazy little things all the time in my discretionary time. Although dancing with the Eau Claire Stars has taken up a lot of that.
Oh, we'll talk about that in a second.
So it's like the ball of energy moves. But I struggle with that to be vulnerable a little bit is, do I want to do this full time? I know a few full-time DJs in town and COVID did hit them pretty hard, but maybe I should do this full time. People tell me all the time, Phil, you should do this full time. You should I'd have to do 60 weddings a year.
Yeah.
You know, and I do about a dozen right now and they're all on referrals. I don't advertise. So if I were to do that, I would have a business plan. I would understand what my goals were. I would try to hit those goals so I can keep paying rent, right? But it's a struggle. I mean, it's a struggle. When do you make that leap? So for the musicians out there and the bands out there, they're kind of like, we're right at the edge. Do we want to like do a tour? And do we want to make a living at this? I mean, you're going to be eating ramen noodles and chicken noodle soup for like 5 years, right? You hear all these bands that have made it. It was the perfect storm for them somehow, you know, a lot of them. I mean, it really was. I don't want to use lucky. I don't want to say like a band U2 was lucky or whatever, but globally well-known band. But I struggle with that as an entrepreneur and my passion. And then, oh yeah, you have your day job over here.
Yep.
So it's hard.
Can we talk a little bit just to revisit the conversation we had about, you know, how your creative maybe element looks different for a wedding scene, let's say, because for a wedding, they already know the songs they want. You're essentially playing
pretty much
the songs that they want.
Pretty
and
much.
Maybe you'll do a transitional
you
kind
mix
of thing in
in
between.
Things.
And then when you go and you play at a club or a bar, which you were doing I think pretty religiously every Friday, right? At one of the local restaurants here.
Yep.
I don't know if we can say it. But does that look differently for you when it comes down to how you express yourself through that art?
The creative is completely different. So for a wedding, it's more in the pocket, cha-cha slide, Cupid shuffle stuff.
But it's paying the bills for sure.
Well, a wedding DJ is a very well-paying thing. And my rates are very competitive. And I do that just because, one, I'm a parent. And I don't want to, I say gouge the kids, right? Because I'm old. But I don't want to gouge the kids, right? So I'm really, really competitive compared to other DJs. But they're getting 110% of me, and they're getting the best experience they can get. And, I've got really good reviews. I just got a great review from the wedding
You're really heavily
Friday.
involved in
the whole
too.
process with the wedding. Yes.
You give me the songs you like, the bands you like. You really tailor everything.
I do. And sometimes you end up getting on site and you're the wedding planner. It's weird. It's like, okay, that's Phil. He's the DJ, but he'll
and
tell
then all of a sudden
everything
you're the
that's
best man too.
Yeah. It's like when's dinner? So you end up helping the wedding. But anyway, and so at the club or bar, it's a whole different setup. I use a whole different setup. I use a digital keypad. I have digital vinyl. I mix beats. Okay, so I'll take songs and mix them and cut them and loop them, and I mix beats, and that's really fun creatively.
Yeah.
A wedding might be a 7-hour thing from 5 to midnight, and sometimes it's it's 10 o'clock, and I'm like. I'm doing the chicken dance, and you
got people coming up saying,
fun.
"Can you play this
song?
song?
Can you play this?" And then, but at the bar, it's like I'm cutting beats, I'm looping beats, I got a dance floor going.
You can do whatever you want based off of the mood you're
it's
getting,
like 4 hours like that.
Yes.
Because it's a whole different process and a whole different mindset.
And the energy is so different. I could see
different.
just the dichotomy between the two different scenes there too. So
They're great creative outlets. Again, if I could do it full time, heck yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm getting up there, right? I'm on my downswing to retirement in 10 to 15 years, but I've been age shamed a bunch actually as a DJ, which you wouldn't think would be a thing.
Yeah.
But I'll show up to a wedding and some of the bridesmaids are like, "That's your DJ? He's got gray hair."
But you don't even know yet, all right?
Right.
He's about to shut it down.
Don't be age shaming me. I'm gonna kick butt out here.
Right.
You're gonna hear Lizzo. It's okay.
Right. And I guess one of the things, and you played. I do want to say, by the way, I was at a wedding that you played. One of my really close friends. They were on the show as well. But you killed it, and I remembered you played all their songs. They're very unique on what kind of music they like to listen to. No idea that you would have known of that music, because I feel like a lot of people don't listen to Blink-182 from 2004 very much, but that's their music, and so. And then you're also going to be hooking up with one of my friends too, because they're getting married next year. But anyway, cool. So just to transition, we talked a little bit about today's music. Can you speak a little bit more on your viewpoints again on how you feel social media and the instant gratification culture has impacted artists today? So whether they are vocalists or actors, we have a lot of YouTubers I've seen that they're vocal coaches and they do reaction videos and things like that.
I love those.
And they get millions of views. But can
Adam
you guys
should do
both?
that.
Yeah, you really should. I'll be your first singer and you can, break that down. But how do you feel that this culture has impacted artists earning a living today? Do you think it's helped, hurt?
Oh,
Pros and cons?
What do you think?
Yeah, I think there are definitely pros and cons to all of it because there is this instantaneous access to information and art from artists. So as soon as Lady Gaga drops a new album, everybody in the world knows about it. Mm-hmm. As soon as TYB drops a new album, everyone in the world has the potential to know about it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really cool thing about social media and instant gratification is that it definitely doesn't create a level playing field because as we know through social media and algorithms and things, it's not level. It's not skewed towards the small local musicians. It's skewed towards the big names. But it does create some sense of access and some sense of I get a place at the same sort of a table, or at least I get to be in the same room as these people. And they have the opportunity to have a platform that's much larger than anything that we could have imagined. I mean, even
years and
30,
years
40 years ago when the music scene was really robust
you looked
in
at
the
me,
US.
So
yeah.
30, 40 years ago. I'd be more than tell you about it. I'd be more than happy.
But you're absolutely right, because when we talk about how music was traditionally or historically, like that scene, you know, it's, I mean, I don't know a lot. I'm not a musician, but I see that, like, you know, you're manufactured-ish to some extent, not everyone, but like boy bands, let's say, you know, I love boy bands, right? I'm just going to admit that I grew up with Backstreet Boys and sing, but you see that they probably don't have as much access without like a record label behind them, and these world tours, and like, you know, being on Good Morning America, things like that. But now with YouTube, they can create whatever they want and put it on a platform that's accessible to everyone across the globe.
Yeah.
So that's a great point that you brought that up.
And it doesn't rely on a physical transfer. Like if I print 500 CDs as a musician back in 1995, I can only reach as many people as those 500 CDs can travel to.
Yeah,
and
right.
physically move from
Unless
person
you
to
had
person.
Napster.
Unless you have Napster.
Oh my God, Napster.
But
Is that
now,
still around?
But now, like we throw the Social Exchange Project podcast on Spotify, and instantly, anyone anywhere in the world has access to it, and
Very
that's
true.
really cool.
That is really cool. So what would you say, I guess, speak more to that?
Yeah, so
Maybe disadvantages too, to kind of look at that.
Well, there's two words that came into my head when you asked that question: resources and team. So, like Lady Gaga, for example, she has resources and a team of people behind the scenes. You know, just like any election. I mean, there's just so much that goes on now with social media and all the things with Instagram and all these Snapchat, all the ones I don't have, right? So, but I think it's, again, go back to proactive and reactive. So like a local musician here in Eau Claire, they can proactively get their things out on social media, and then they wait for the reaction, right? Hoping that maybe that reaction is Dr. Dre, okay? Or you know what I mean? Like, someone's going to discover me.
It can be noticed.
And get noticed. And I think that here's the disadvantage, in my opinion, right? Okay, so disclaimer, okay. There's too much. It's too much.
Oversaturated.
It's
Definitely.
So now, if I'm a record label executive these days, or I am a Dr. Dre or a producer or whoever, I mean, okay, great musician in Eau Claire over here, great musician in La Crosse. There's 2 in Madison, 55 in Minneapolis. I got 100 in New York. I mean, I'm looking at all this YouTube. I'm looking at all these things, and I'm just overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It's like, how do I know what's going to hit? Because those guys and gals, they're in the business to make money. Let's just say it. We could do a long list of bands that I could share with you that have sold out and not happy about it, but hey, they got the almighty dollar, right? So I think the disadvantage is it's too much. There's an artist that I just respect and really love, and they just had a new album drop yesterday. Or wait, what's today? Friday. And I'm a little taken aback by how needy and desperate he's been on social media. Like every 2 hours there's something about their new album. And I'm just like, my God, let's just breathe and pull back here. Let it marinate for a week or two. Let people react to it. But he's just like constantly shoving these things, all the reviews, anyway. So I think.
But do you think though that that's because there's a pressure to stand out because there are so many different things happening?
And this is a band that was well known in the 80s, and they were the first Christian heavy metal band. I mean, honestly, in 1983, 1984, first. I mean, Christian. I mean, but it's the 80s riff and the hair and they're
so
really
they
good.
stood out back then, but now they've got to like
so they're constantly, and the lead singer who actually has a really good head on his shoulders, good guy, it's too much. It's like, dude, let's just settle down here. You know, people like your band, you have a following. Yeah, you're not making the money you did. Yeah, the music industry's changed, but let us breathe a little bit and enjoy your record instead of slamming everything down our throats every 2 hours. Yeah.
Well, and what you said too about there's too much of it, kind of the flip side of what I said, it made me realize too, it gives people like the Rebecca Blacks of the world with Friday the same clout.
She's a phenomenal vocalist.
Well, but like we
Yes,
put those
you're right,
people
you're
on the
right.
same platforms and they're able to get huge for something that's not great
Right.
at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got people that like this is their life, this is their business, their trade, whatever you call it.
And they're amazing.
And they're getting less exposure than the Rebecca Blacks and the kids that have lots of money who just hire a team of producers to to do a big launch of something for them. So I guess that's a major flip side too, is just the not good stuff coming to the top.
Yeah. So pressure of standing out, but also the pressure of having really good music that somehow you mess with the algorithm so people can actually see you and access you amongst all these other things that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that was like a viral video too, I think, because it was more so to make fun of her, I think. But still, she had a platform. She was everywhere versus maybe another artist who really deserved that and didn't really get that recognition. So that's a really good point. So we talked a little bit about how, Phil, you mentioned this, how COVID-19 or the coronavirus has affected many industries, including music. Do you think that, I mean, from your viewpoints, do you think that the coronavirus was a game changer for the music scene? And do you think that it's going to look very differently now for musicians moving forward? So, for example, lots of people are doing live streams instead because we can't get together in person to enjoy their music at a festival, let's say. Do you think that this is a game changer? Why or why not?
I do. I think it's a game changer from the way that you market and create. I think it's been a neat game changer for us as fans because a lot of artists are doing, I guess, quote unquote, free. I mean, they're raising money for charities or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I have another artist that I follow that he's been doing like Friday night shows and then raising money for different charities. Well, we probably wouldn't have done that pre-COVID, right? I mean, they did one big thing a year. But now every Friday, I think it was in May, he raised $93,000 in 1 month for different charities. And so that's been a game changer. I think artists are becoming more virtually available and more virtually human, so to speak, where they're interacting with fans more online, where before you had to go to a show, maybe do a meet and greet for an exorbitant amount of money, right? And okay, you got, my son and his friend went and saw an artist in the cities. They paid $250 for a meet and greet. I think it was something like that. I mean, the mom paid for it, but they literally took a picture with this artist for 4 seconds and then were shoved to the side. And that's not interaction. That's not an experience. So I think what COVID has done, obviously it's changed the way you have to sell your content, but I think it's also forced musicians to interact more socially online through all of the social media platforms to interact, where before they didn't have to, And so I think that's a good thing. But it's also the ability not to have live shows and large gathering concerts. I mean, let's just say it. I'm a little depressed about it because I love that. I thrive on the live shows. I've been to, I don't know how many concerts in my life, a lot. And that's really a bummer. And so it's changed that ability to have live music out, like music in the park. And I know we're going to talk about this a little bit, but it really stinks.
Or even Rockfest and
all of them.
Right?
I wanted to see Snoop this year.
Yeah, that would have been amazing.
I was so excited. And I was going to go see Snoop Dogg finally. And COVID-19.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's definitely been a game changer, and I think it was in New York. I saw an article that they're shutting down all live venues like until spring of next year, like theater, all live shows, any live shows. Come on, really?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard on these artists.
Well, and I think, too, as long as we're on the topic, I think we'd be remiss in mentioning music and COVID-19 and not saying that we need people to write their representatives. We need people to get a hold of their senators, get a hold of their representatives, support the Red Light Restart Initiative, support the National Independent Venue Association, NIVA, that we have, I believe, 10 or 11 venues here in Eau Claire.
Right, Pablo.
That are all part of NIVA. So write your reps. It takes a couple minutes, and
it really does.
We
It's
need
not even a
support
couple
right
minutes.
now.
It's like, absolutely.
Some of them have pre-filled forms. You just go to the website and hit submit. Like, you give them your zip code, and it emails all of your reps. So
yeah, we
point.
need that. Good point. Thanks for mentioning
Yeah.
that. What would you say? I guess maybe speak a little bit about in regards to your background when we're thinking about how COVID-19 has changed the game. I've some of the local theater groups here. They do a lot of lives where they are all on Zoom and they're performing. So that's looked a lot differently too, because normally theater isn't like that, obviously. Can you speak a little bit more about what your thoughts are about how that might have changed? Do you think COVID has changed that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we would have done this by choice. Like, I don't think that we would have gone to a live streaming world or we would have gone to performances on Zoom
Right.
because we thought it would be a good idea or a replacement for theater. I think that this is definitely a sign of the times and like a necessary adjustment. I don't think it will be forever. I think that
Nothing
we will
like
see
theater in person.
Yeah, we won't see this like take over and see a major shift, but I do think that we will see it change the landscape of theater, and maybe from the rehearsal process to the audience experience. You may see half full houses, and then they sell the other half in live stream codes. Or you may see virtual rehearsals start taking priority to start shows off or to isolate part of the cast, and so that you don't have to have 50 people in one room. You can work with 10 on their scene, and then the other 40 can be online learning music and things. And there's definitely no replacement for in-person education. I think we've all realized that with the closing the schools last spring and the move to virtual, but I don't think that that will ever be able to replace the in-person experience that you get with theater and with singing together. I just started vocal directing a new show called Duck for President. It's a cast of 5 kids, and the 3 girls that are kind of one of the main trios in this they haven't sang together with other people like
Right.
for a couple months.
Right.
And the other night, just watching them get excited about hearing harmonies again and hearing them be able to blend their voices with others and just make music together, it was really cool, and they were really excited about it. And so that made me excited to be working with them and really excited for the eventual show itself.
Yeah,
So,
when it all comes together.
when it all comes together. And they're younger, they're high school girls. Like they've been out of school. They haven't had necessarily arts. A couple of them were in Newsies this summer, but being able to work in a small group like that is really cool. And then
A unique
the joy they
experience,
get.
but really cool. So segueing here, so you both are here because elephant in the room is that you guys are both doing Dancing with the Stars Eau Claire for 2020. And Adam, I think you guys both have. I mean, I'm gonna be coming, but you're the professional, right? That's kind of what it's called,
Pro,
the
yep.
pro, and then you're helping train someone, your partner, and then you're the one who's the trainee. Can you guys first, maybe Adam, if you could talk a little bit more about Dancing with the Stars, because it's been going on for a very long time, and then what you guys have been up to with that too.
Yeah. So Dancing with the Eau Claire Stars is the largest fundraiser of the year for the Eau Claire Children's Theater. It happens every September, and this is the 12th year. This is my 8th year participating as a pro dancer. So the teams are made up of a pro dancer. So generally,
you are a pro.
Theater.
You can
He
put
is a
these
pro.
away. You can
I
put
always
these
do
away.
the quotes.
He's a pro.
But we pair up like a theater veteran with a local celebrity. So someone that works in the Chamber of Commerce, for instance, or
Bill's a celebrity.
Yeah.
or
Okay.
doctors, lawyers, teachers, university representatives, people from around the community that a lot of people recognize. And we put them together with a choreographer, and the choreographer teaches dance. Usually, so there are 2 rounds. The beginning round is the compulsory round where everyone does something that's the same. And then the second round is freestyle where you can do whatever you want. And so this year, we're doing Broadway. So you can do any Broadway song and any style, but it just has to be a Broadway song.
Very cool. So,
yeah.
I mean, I know you guys probably can't give too much away.
Heck no.
You can't give too much away, and you can definitely vote too for those at home. I voted for both of you guys, so just so you know,
Thank you.
equal. I'm supportive of both of you guys equally. But Phil, how has your experience been?
It's been awesome. It's really, really taken me out of my comfort zone. Let's put it that way. So for someone that played sports his whole life and still plays hockey in the winter, I'm like, okay, I can do this little dance thing, you know, do some little flashy little hand things and dance. Nope. It's a lot more than I thought.
Spirit fingers.
Yeah, like jazz hands.
Yeah, jazz
and
hands.
this stuff and this stuff. But it's really been intense at times. And Heather and Kelly is my pro dancer. She's been in the show a lot. And then Heather's our choreographer. They've really, for good, they've really kind of gotten on me, and they've really been great as far as adjusting to what I can and can't do. No, we're in a good place. We practiced this morning for 2 hours. I love our routines. I think they're very unique. Of course, probably everybody does. But I think we're going to surprise some people. But the overall experience has been awesome. And I didn't anticipate the group number being 4 minutes long. So, because our dances are a minute and a half.
Yep.
So when we're doing the group number, it's like 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes. And I'm like, when's this going to be over? Because I've been dancing for 4 minutes and I'm old. But it's been great. Everybody's been really supportive. There's some good old-fashioned, ribbing going on between Adam's partner
You guys
and
are obviously
myself.
at war.
We're competing against each other, and I'm
Yeah,
competing
yep.
against a friend of mine and also someone that's also involved heavily in the Chamber of Commerce. So we're kind of like,
Yep.
saying this and that. I'm really going for the fan favorite. I've sold some tickets, but I'm going for that fan favorite, and so those of you out there,
Yeah.
I'm really going for it this year. Bottom line, raising money.
Yeah.
Raising
That's what
money
it's all
for
about.
a great cause. And it made me realize, too, that maybe I should get a little more. I love the arts and I love the theater, and I have minimal theater experience. But like, I love lighting and sound and illumination and all that. And I know Adams does that. And now it's kind of prompted me to think, okay, after all this is over and I have some more time, maybe I can get more involved in that portion.
Sparks like a new interest, but
Yeah,
also a
absolutely.
deeper appreciation on
Yes.
what happens behind the scenes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so weird to the fact that I'll go to a concert and I'll watch the lighting with the music. I'm like, oh, I'd have did that different. I'd have did that different lighting. Why aren't they doing this lighting here? Why is that? It should be, So, I don't know. That's just where my brain goes. But I know there's outlets to do things like that in the community. I just have to take more advantage of them, and I have no problem volunteering time to do it.
Yeah. Very
So,
cool.
Yeah.
Well, and that's also important too, is that it's a community organization. It's
Yeah.
a volunteer organization. We're not bringing people in from Minneapolis or bringing people in
Right.
from Madison and paying people to do these things. Like, this is all grassroots community theater, and you don't have to have any experience on stage or backstage to get involved.
Right.
There is something for everybody, and that's kind of why I
Even
love
for
theater.
me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm kidding.
And like why my whole family grew up in the theater, in Eau Claire Children's Theater, is we were able to find something. My dad was backstage, my mom was on stage and on the board. My brother and sister still do tech work for the Children's Theater, like flying and spotlights and things. So it's really cool that anyone can find something.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's cool. And I just really want to thank you both for being here today. I think we're going to maybe have a little glimpse, maybe sneak peek of what you guys have been working on
We'll
without
try
giving
something.
too much away, because everyone needs to buy tickets in order for them to see this. So,
Correct.
So we'll get a small sneak peek, very exclusive to the Social Exchange, just because I know you guys both love and adore me and I was obsessed with me. So I appreciate you guys doing this very much, but also thank you guys so much for this conversation and for being here today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. It was awesome. Thanks.
Wow. Yeah, we've got some crazy hip hop stuff.
We're going to try and decide if we want to do
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go. Start over. 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Up, jump, up, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, hit it. Crap. I don't think I didn't. I just like jumped a couple times.
Well, I went like this. Quick.
5, 6, 7. 2, look around on and
So you got a little glimpse of the guys section.